There's been a lot of material exchange today. But these are the thoughts. Let me know what you think. First of all, that mental health is for everyone. Mental illness is an issue that won't go away if we simply refuse to talk about it. And the implications of what we're doing for our veterans will pour over. They have a bearing. What we do for the uniform will also have a tremendous bearing on the non-uniform. In our first group, the focus on military children and families, we had that marvelous movie from Glow Media on bipolar and mental illness. And I think that illustrated that the words we use to talk about the illness and to talk about what's happening with opioid addiction, with suicide, with PTSD, if we're going to change anything, we have to change the words that we use. They talked about injury as a process, not an event, the importance of having responsive intervention, not punitive intervention, the importance of family-centered care. In the medical field, we talk about person-centered care to get the patient to weigh in. But in the military in particular, especially when you're dealing with suicide, and that's not, and opioid addiction, that's not just military, but it's important to have family-centered care because everyone needs to be involved. On the research, the science and research panel, it was again underlined that there's an overlap between PTSD and chronic pain, that they very rarely exist independently of one another. How telemedicine is at a cutting edge, I found that rather interesting, that the people who participated online were as satisfied as the people that were in person, and that's very good because there are a lot of people that need help that can't go in person, and this gives us an option, a viable option. The importance of yoga and mindfulness, and some of the basic treatments that have been around for 4,000 years, the integrative treatments, integrative and alternative medicine that we need to tap into. Not only tap into, but find a way to reimburse. The discussion on the 5 elements of psychological first aid, I found that very important, the most important being hope and optimism. The discussion on the efficacy of opioids and the fact that there is no evidence for their use for chronic pain. I was not aware of that. No efficacy, I find that staggering. Again, they reiterated that chronic pain rarely exists alone and that we have to look at the root causes, the psychological comorbidities of pain. The art of healing in Ben's group again stressed the importance of living in the moment, the importance of having that tactile stimulation of touching a dog, the importance of music therapy. There's so many other ways that we can reach and help and heal without taking medication. I found it again staggering when Dr. McKeon said that the majority of healthcare professionals are not trained in suicide prevention. I find that startling and frightening. Beyond the military unsung heroes, the stigma of change at the organizational level. Again, we have to change the words we use, and we have to change the organization. They reiterated the importance of reaching out and checking in on one another. Again, it's okay to hurt. You can't let it run your life. And you have to help people that you can see are hurting. Finally, building better stepping stones. A lot of material here. The thing that kept resonating was connect, unite, and empower. We have to connect, unite, and empower one another. We have to make the mental health care, behavioral health care, part of the healthcare system without increasing the burden. Targeting the schools is important. Most important, we have to listen to what people aren't saying because behavior is communication. So we have to listen carefully. When I was in training in clinical work, one of the physicians who was my mentor told me about availability, affability, and ability. Have you ever heard those 3 A's? He said that it doesn't matter how educated you are, what credentials you have. If you're in an ivory tower and you're not aware of what's going on around you, you're of no use to anyone. He said after that, he said you have to have affability the ability to talk to one another, the ability to encourage dialogue, mostly the ability to listen and to encourage others to ask questions. That's an issue in healthcare. Physicians often don't have enough time. People feel uncomfortable talking. The patient feels uncomfortable talking. He said, availability, affability. Ability comes last. We have all of those. We have to find a way to make them more accessible. On an upbeat note, I found the fact that with traumatic stress, post-traumatic stress, there's also post-traumatic growth. And that harkened back to the 5 psychological steps of hope and optimism. We have lots of resources that we've given you. I think we've delivered on education, facilitation, and collaboration. What do you think? Think so? And on that note, I would like to invite our fearless leader, Colonel U.S. Army retired Mary Lo Mayhew, to come back to the stage.
Thank you, Susan. I think she did a great job of really capturing some of the things we talked about today. But when I embarked on this mission, I met with a good friend of mine who worked for RAND, Terry Tennillian, and she talked about we lacked leadership. We really lacked leadership to support change in what we're trying to do here. And so we talked earlier today a little bit about a pledge, about what we need to change. We have some valuable information we're all walking away with today. We had 2 wonderful congressmen here who are very committed to that change. We can use that. We can use that information. I talked a couple years ago in front of the American Bar Association, and I told them the pen is mightier than the sword. So we have to encourage people to write our congressmen and convince them and take this information we have today to change and put smart policy in place. Policy is what's going to help change things. We have to do that for talking about it, putting good programs in place, and also to within ourselves here. Look at all of ourselves as leaders. Everybody in here is a leader, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You're here because you're committed about making change and making brain health part of whole health. I have a lot of people to thank today. We had wonderful master of ceremonies. We have our wonderful photographer and our videographer. We had our board members. We had our facilitators. I can't do this without your help. Okay, my list is way too long for people to think we'd be here until tomorrow morning. But I do want to make sure I thank our board members, and if I could have our board members come up and just to give them accolades, because they've been doing this for a couple years. We'll be starting next week to plan next year, so if I could have our board members come up here, and there's a few others, like Kathleen, I know that you've been with us for such a long time, but our board members, please come up here. I want to recognize some of these people that have made this happen for the past year and have put a lot of time, effort, and energy into place. Because Kathleen was helping us with our gala, she's helped with, and Trish Gulaki is not here, otherwise she'd probably be up on the stage. But these individuals, Bobby, you better get up here. You can't, I'm sorry, you're going to have to take a picture of yourself or do a selfie. But I want to make sure I invite more of you to come up here in the future with us, because we're about making change, about making things happen. And the other people I can't forget are my great MITRE colleagues. I have several people from MITRE today, and MITRE is a federal research center. We have a lot of people here taking notes, but they're here today not only because they could get to use civic time, but because they care about making change. Many of them are passionate about areas of health and want to change some of our policies here today. So I know they'll take some of what they learned today and help our federal sponsors make smart policy and make smart changes. So I want to thank everybody for being here today and thank all of you. You guys have made this happen. Thank you. And now I want to invite everybody over to the Capitol Hill Club. It's right next door. We're going to have a reception because we have some more discussion that needs to take place. And I know many of us want to talk more about these things. I have some ideas. And plus we have some really good food over there too. And an open bar.